Hi and welcome to our video review for Freekstyle for the PlayStation 2. This game is actually, I guess I wouldn't say published, but it's kind of under the tutelage of EA Sports Big, and that's the arm of Electronic Arts that actually published SSX and NBA Street and Sledstorm in the past. And they have a habit of taking a traditional sport and kind of taking it over the top, and Midway in the past has kind of been guilty of milking its franchises in this way, but EA Sports Big has actually taken the over-the-top sports genre and actually done something with it. And this is their take on the motocross genre. Now, comparisons to SSX are inevitable, and in truth, there's a lot about Freekstyle that's very similar to that snowboarding game. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that are different. But the one thing that definitely everyone will relate to at first as being the same as SSX is the control scheme. And actually, EA Sports Big uses this control scheme across all their games, which makes them easy to pick up and play at first. But luckily, this game has enough little things to make it different, to make it seem like it's kind of a different game to play. So basically, when you perform tricks in this game, you use the 4 shoulder buttons in different combinations to pull the tricks. But the trick is that whenever you go off of ramps, you have to pull back in order to get the maximum air. Now this kind of, it can be kind of difficult at times. It'll actually tie your fingers in knots when you try to do it when you first start playing the game, because you have your 4 fingers on the shoulder buttons, you have one thumb on the gas, and you have to roll that over to hit the turbo button. And sometimes it can be a little difficult to get used to, but after a while it becomes like second nature. This game has an excellent sensation of speed, and why that is because the frame rates are rock solid. If you remember in SSX and SSX Tricky, probably the biggest problem with the visuals was that the frame rates would get really bad. Well, in Freekstyle, they've definitely cleared this up thanks to a brand new graphics engine that they use, and the change is definitely welcome. One thing about this game that I should probably mention before I go any farther is that it's hard. A lot of people complain that SSX was too easy, that you could walk through it with each character once you got used to it, and for those people that complained about it, this game's for you. You race through the first track in the game, and it's pretty easy. You can get through it pretty well. Then you get to the second one, you really got to start working. By the time you get to the third track, it can almost seem impossible at times. And the reason it's so hard is because the rider AI is just insane. I mean, first of all, the rubber band AI, which lets the riders catch up to you even though you're doing well, is just far too overblown. I mean, you could have a perfect run through 3 laps, make one slight mistake, and next thing you know, all 5 riders have went past you and you're in last place. And that could definitely get frustrating. Another problem with the gameplay is the track design. I mean, first of all, the track designs are really cool and they're way over the top, but the thing is that this game encourages exploration. I mean, there are so many shortcuts on each track, and in order to win the races, you have to use the shortcuts. But the problem is you have to find the shortcuts first. And finding the shortcuts is a pain in the butt because sometimes they're really obvious, but sometimes you have to jump over odd barriers. But sometimes there's invisible walls there that won't let you jump. So after you play the game for a while, you start to wonder, you're like, well, that looks like a shortcut, but maybe there's an invisible barrier there that's not going to let me do it. And after a while, it just really becomes a lesson in trial and error. Another issue I have with the track design is the fact that the game encourages you to catch huge air, yet there's all these obstacles in the air that if you hit them, you wreck. So it's like, okay, we want you to get big air, and there's this huge metal hoop you're supposed to fly into that's like 400 yards off the ground, yet if you barely touch the hoop itself, you wreck. So it's this self-defeating thing with both the shortcuts and with the jumps. It's like they want you to find the shortcuts, they want you to jump high, yet there are all these obstacles that keep you from doing it. And I think that's something that I definitely should mention in this review. But at the same time, the game is fun. And why is it fun? It's fun because it's fast. This is probably the fastest racing game on the PlayStation 2. And on top of it all, the controls are tight. I mean, you cut around turns, you get that perfect little slide right on the fringe of your tires breaking loose, and then they catch, and it just shoots you through the turn. And I mean, that feeling of exhilaration that you get from that is what makes this game so fun to play. But at the same time, there's so many little nagging issues with the gameplay that kind of hold it back that it's hard to really give it a full recommendation. They really didn't pull any punches with the track design in this game. These tracks are just crazy. If you thought SSX was out of hand with the way the tracks were designed, well, this game will definitely blow your mind. There's definitely a theme to each track or whatever, but at the same time, they pulled in some art directors from Hollywood to do this game, and you can definitely see their influence on the art design. Another positive aspect of the game's graphics is the animation, and just like the SSX series, the trick animations in this game are awesome. And again, they've brought in somebody from Hollywood. In fact, the animator who did the animations for this game worked on Shrek. And all the animations in this game are done by hand. They're not motion captured. And at first you might think that it may make them look unbelievable, but in the end it's exactly the opposite. The attention to detail in the animations is so good that it makes these impossible tricks that will probably never ever be pulled off look like they could actually be done in the real world. Overall, I'd have to say that Freekstyle is a fun game to play thanks to its sense of speed and thanks to its tight controls. But at the same time, the learning curve in the game is a little too extreme and it gets a little too hard too quickly. So if you're the type of person who likes a challenge in his games, you're probably going to love this game. But for the more casual player, or even for younger players who may not be that good, I definitely recommend staying away from this game or maybe giving it a rental first.